Hello, BookTube friends. You may think, Karina, you're late on this book, but I just read this book, Leave the World Behind by Rumaan, and it's terrible. I gave it literally 2 stars. I don't know why I gave it 2 stars. I was like, literally as I was writing out my reasons for why I hated this novel, I was like, should I give it 1 star? What did I like about it? It was finishable. This is what I will give it to you. If the book is finishable, I will give it 2 stars. If it's not finishable, I'll give it 1 star. Maybe that'll be the standard. I don't know, but let me just start with, why do I hate this book? This book is so bad. And let's just start with the characters. Now, the characters are just, it's hard to describe. They're kind of like just archetypal characters. They're just kind of really broadly written characters. So you have, the basic premise of the story is a white middle-class type of family from the city goes out of the city to the woods, wherever they are, to outside of New York, right outside of New York in the woods somewhere, off in the wood line. They are trying to go on vacation. So they went to this nice little, not a cabin, it's like a nice house in the woods. It's a cottage, I don't know. Anyway, so they're at this place and they're trying to have vacation, and the end of the world basically starts happening, and the people who own the house come back and they're like, hi, the lights are out in New York City and we think something crazy might be going down, so we came here and we're kind of scared. Let's hunker down. So they hunker down for literally, what, like 48 hours, and it's so bad. It's like, now that I'm saying it out loud, I do think this book takes place over the course of less than 3 days, I think. So like 48 hours. Like, it's ridiculously bad. Like, it's, I can't. So the character, I literally wrote, the characters are broadly written garbage people. They're garbage people. They're not like super horrible people, but they're just kind of like, kind of bad people. That's part of my problem, and I'll get to that in a second. So the white parents are basically like, just, you know, kind of stereotypical, especially if you've read a lot of modern books in the last couple, like 3-ish years. They seem like all of the other obnoxious white people you've read about in novels in the last 3 years. They're you know, a little bit, they're basically entitled. They're basically inept at a lot of things. Their kids are whiny. They define themselves by their job. You know, that's their whole vibe. That's Amanda and Clay. I literally stopped reading this morning, finished reading this morning. I can barely remember the characters' names, because they're just so broad. Like, they don't have any personality quirks. Like, they don't have any personality. They're just supposed to symbolize obnoxious white folks that exist. Like, this is, did you know that some white people are really obnoxious and entitled? Did you know that? Have you ever heard about that before? You know, like, I don't know if you've heard about this. So the black couple comes back, and this is how you know they're entitled. The black couple comes back, and like the white woman is like, how do we know they live here? I don't know. I'm doing, because I listened to the audiobook, so I am imitating the voice. This is not how all white women talk. But listen, follow me. How do we know? Like, what? We rented this place. We have rights. And I'm just like, girl, it's their house. If they come in and say anything to you, like, no, you don't have rights, girl. Like, she really wanted to, like, send them away on the first night. Aren't there hotels? She said that to people. And if I was the wife, and see, this is the thing that bothered me, because Ruth is the black woman who's in the black couple. They're supposed to be, like, wealthy black people, and I guess wealthy black people don't clap back. But if I was Ruth, I would be like, yeah, there are motels. You want us to point you in the direction of some? Like, you could leave. You could leave, actually. We're here now. We think it's an emergency. We feel like it's an emergency, and we don't want you to be here. So go away. She could have easily said that, but she didn't. And you know what? I'm like, and then before I get into the black couple any further, let's talk about the kids. The kids have no personality. They're just whiny kids. They're just whiny kids. You know how like the whiny kids is like, you know, kind of like the gangly older brother and the like chubby, bookish younger sister? That's them. You've heard of those characters before. They have no personality. They don't have any quirk. Nothing. It's just like, I'm the little sister and I look up to my brother, but my brother thinks I'm an annoying baby. I'm the older brother. I think my little sister's annoying, but you know, like, that's it. That's them, you know, like, and I'm just like, boo, this sucks. And like the whole story is like stream of conscious. So there's nothing going on except hanging out in these characters' minds. And the story is supposed to kind of be like in the end of the world. But you know how in certain movies and stuff, they try to keep it vague as to like what's really happening, what's really going on. But like the main thing of those stories or movies is that the main characters are getting clues and they're figuring things out and they're trying to find somewhere safe to go and they're trying to find a way to survive. These characters, the way he's written it, is like a bottle episode of a TV show. They never leave, and if they leave, they can just come back. They never go physically anywhere else. Like they get in the car and drive around and come straight back. Like they never go into like a hospital, they never go into a store. They never like go and really have contact with the outside world in any meaningful way. And then when they do, it's towards the end of the novel. It's like one of the second to last, third to last chapters or something. They go and talk to this guy who's a contractor on the house, and he's like, okay, well, there's nothing for me to do for you, so please leave. And I'm just like, I'm listening to the scene as an audiobook, and I'm like, yeah. He's like, I don't have any new information. I think that obviously it's some sort of war or disaster that's happening. When the phone and the internet come back, we'll know more, but until then, we're not going to know anything. You know, that's it. He's like, okay, that's it. Please leave. And the, I don't want to call him the black guy. His name is literally George Washington. How could I almost forget that? GH is like, well, we're not really friends and he doesn't have anything to offer us, so I guess he's right. I'm listening to this exchange. This chapter, it's like basically its own chapter where instead of going to the hospital, they were supposed to take the son to the hospital because he gets sick. I'm jumping ahead of myself. But they never do. And this is like the very end of the story. This is the only thing that really happens. It's like this is like the major plot point is that the son gets bit by a tick, but they don't know it's a tick bite for some reason. They never see it. And then he gets sick before everybody else. But like the way he writes it is like there's all these little hints. So like there's the cliche of like the animals are being weird. Why are the animals migrating or gathering when they shouldn't be? And you know, like why are flamingos here and all this kind of stuff. Like, oh, the animals are weird. The weather was kind of weird. We hear big boom noises. We don't know what anything is. We don't know what's going on. And that's kind of like the atmosphere. But it's like, I feel like a third of the way through, you kind of register what kind of book this is. And I registered that. I'm like, okay, I know that none of these questions are going to get answered. So to me, I felt like the atmosphere was broken immediately as soon as I knew, like, oh, the author doesn't know what the answer is. And, you know, like, I knew that like a third of the way through. I'm like, oh, this is the kind of author who doesn't think that the answers are important. So that the atmosphere is not going anywhere. So that immediately broke the tension for me. Oh, it's not going anywhere. There's no stakes. There's no stakes in this book because the author doesn't think the plot is important. And we'll get to that in a second. There's so much more that I wrote down I wanted to say. Oh, and he describes the children constantly as pink, little pink children. First of all, one of the girl is like 10 and the boy is like 16. So I'm like, first of all, they're not that little to be pink. Second of all, I'm like, white people aren't that, you see, I like pink. White people aren't that pink. That's why they're called white people. Like that's, they're kind of tan, kind of beige, kind of a fleshy pink color sometimes. They're not that pink. He keeps describing pink, little pink children. She's like, oh, my little perfect pink babies. And I'm like, please stop. They're not pink. Please. I feel like it's supposed to be embodying kind of, oh, a sweet innocence or something. But I'm like, speaking of innocence, aren't we in a moment culturally where we're supposed to be analyzing and interrogating the idea of like white innocence or Caucasian innocence? You know, like, and here's the thing. So you have, this book promises that it's going to touch on race relations and race and class. But like, when I say touch on, it did a light little tap and moved on. Like, it really was like a white people and black people are existing next to each other. And that's the whole story. It never makes the white people embody any of the major problems with white people. Like, I understand that being obnoxious and entitled seems like one of the major problems of white people. Yes and no. Like, I feel like if he really wanted to like interrogate that a little bit, he would have made the white folks a little bit more aggressive. I mean, like, we're living in the era where the Karen era, right? Where white women are calling the police on people that they don't trust. And white people are calling the police on people who live in the same apartment building as them, but they've never seen them before, and they're calling the police. So you're telling me that you're telling me that Barbie and Ken are sitting here in the house with two black people, and they're just gonna sit here and chill with these black people. You know, see, this is what they want to do. He makes it too broad. He makes the characters too broad. It's like everyone's the bad guy because no one's the bad guy. You see what I'm saying? It's like we all ignore the news. We all don't know what's going on. We all don't know what wars are being started or what disasters are being, you know, plotted around the world. We all are wrong. And it's just like, but that's not really interesting, and it's not really true. Like, I really think that if he wanted to create more tension or analyze more race struggles, he would have made the white folks in the story, maybe they're trying to keep up with the Joneses and they really can't afford this vacation. Maybe they're financially struggling. They're just kind of average financial situation, average level of obnoxiousness. The black people are rich, but they're kind of like the black people next door. They don't really ruffle that many feathers. No one raises their voice to each other until like the last final act. And it's like a wah wah type of argument. Like, they never really like talk about race or make a pointed issue out of the race thing, when I just feel like at this point that's actually unrealistic. There's so many people, when it comes to a us versus them situation, would use their advantage. So like, I feel like the white couple, that girl may have gone full Karen and called the police. But and when the police and if the police were to come, who would they believe? You see what I'm saying? Or they would be trying to plot to contact the police and be like, well, we don't know if these people actually live here. We don't really know, you know, who these people actually are. We rented this place. We don't know these people. And it's like he could have really made it more tension between the two groups, but there wasn't. They kind of begrudgingly get along, and like the Amanda character is just kind of like, well, I'm tired of these people being here. You know, like she's kind of bothered by them, but not, she's not super like, and Clay is just kind of like, and this is kind of like what I'm seeing being portrayed a lot, is that like the white male is just kind of dopey and just kind of dopey and go along to get along type of personality. And I guess like if I think about white males, maybe they do exist on that kind of spectrum of like go along, get along white man versus like a Trump supporter, you know, like, you know, maybe that is kind of like the dichotomy, or somewhere in the spectrum. There's a little fly in here. I'm so, if you see me, I'm trying to make it natural, like I'm just gesturing. You know, I don't know. I just hate this book. I just hated it. It was just like, I just wanted more. Like, I just wanted more, even from the interactions. This book, let me just get down to it. Because I have more notes that I didn't talk about. Hold on. No one could be, oh, and then I say the race thing is not explored enough. And it was like, writing these characters as annoying and entitled and inept is not the same as a true exploration of race. Like, you're like, look at these inept, entitled white people. Like, it's like, okay, that's one thing to say. That's one thing to note. But anyone could be inept and entitled. Like, and honestly, they're not, the two groups aren't really foils of each other. They're kind of so, it's like wealthy black people, they kind of made it like wealthy black people are the same as middle class white people. Like, black people have to become like working 6-figure jobs, upper crust, to get to the same level of entitlement of like an average middle class white family. Maybe that's the examination we're supposed to be taking away. But I'm like, I'm not satisfied with that. I'm not satisfied with it. I'm not satisfied with it. I mean, and let's talk about the black couple. So the father of the couple, the male of the couple, is George Washington. George Hubert or whatever Washington. I don't know what his middle name is. But it's he goes by GH because his name is literally George Washington, so he doesn't want to go by that. So he's just like this bland guy who is like I said, he's like a puppet, and the author is just like holding him up, shaking him in front of our face and saying like, I have lots of money. I'm George Washington and I have lots of money, and I wish that my money could save me from the apocalypse, but it can't. I don't know what to do. Woo, shucks. You know, like that's his character. And then Ruth is kind of like, he wants this character to be not like the stereotypical supporting black woman character, like the supporting character, like a lot of the things that Viola Davis kind of gets shoved into. Like, that's what I imagined. Like, he was trying to do the opposite, but he doesn't do the opposite because he doesn't give her anything else to be. Instead of being wise and supportive and nurturing to all the people, she's kind of nothing to the people. Like, she cleans up the house a little bit because she likes things neat and orderly. And she's kind of prim and proper. And that's it. Like, she doesn't have anything else. It got so bad towards the middle of the novel that the 3 female characters all started blending together to me. Like, when they were all the whole group was interacting, they were so bland. I couldn't tell the difference between a 60-year-old black woman, a 40-year-old white woman, and a 10-year-old white girl. Like, that's how bland these characters were fucking written. I was just like, I don't think so. This is bad. And then Clay is only so different from George Washington because George Washington is like, I'm George Washington. I have a lot of money. The stock market. I learned about information. And information will help you predict what's going to happen and will get people rich. And I just want to be connected to information and my money. Like this. I just was like, it's just so, it was so boring. I can't. And then Clay, the most frustrating scene, maybe this was a good, maybe this is where we think we're exploring race, is Clay goes out. They send Clay's dumb, stupid motherfucking ass. Clay, get in the car, go to the store or go wherever and ask people what they think is going on with the fucking apocalypse. What's the news updates? And so he gets in the car, he takes like 2 or 3 turns and is immediately motherfucking lost. This is where like some people on Goodreads are saying like, is this supposed to be a satire? And I'm just like, it's not funny. Like that's, the book isn't funny. Like maybe a couple things are funny. Like there's a scene where he masturbates and he compares his penis to doing a sun salutation. Maybe that's a little funny, but like just in general, everything is so bland that it's not funny. Like it's just existing. I don't know. Like this whole book is like, it's like a slice of life book. It's like a literary slice of life book, but bad. And then like the genre of like dystopian apocalypse, but also bad. And this is what I said, like someone needs to come up with a name for this, because I don't have a way to describe this other than describing it as just the worst type of book, because it has all of the dullness. I think a lot of literary, like these are the complaints that people have about different genres. So the literary genre, people complain that it's boring, right? Or it's boring and pretentious. And then for genre fiction, they complain that it just has a lot of the stereotypes and reused motifs over and over again. And he combines those 2 complaints and he mixes those things together to make this book. So he has boring slice of life bullshit combined with the vague genre motifs of dystopian end of the world stories. Boo! Boo! This book sucks! This book is the worst type of book. Why would you combine those 2 things? It's like, who is like, you know, in these action stories, it's an action story. Usually a dystopian story is like an action story. You follow the people that have clear-cut roles and ideas attached to them, and you follow them as they make decisions. These people are just like, they can't make a decision to save their fucking lives. They literally have a big dinner and get drunk the night before shit really goes down. I'm just tired. It's just tiring, and I just don't care. That's the end of that. That's the end. Let me see. Let me look at my notes to see if I left out anything. Ruth barely exists except when she's trying to prove that she's not the stereotypical black supporting character woman. Yeah. Stream of consciousness. The plot is nebulous and dissatisfying. Yeah. We covered it all. Thanks for watching. Did you like this book? Hopefully you didn't watch this and you like this book. And you're like, you're wrong about everything. Sorry, it was bad.